Welcome, everybody, to episode number 42. We want to give a big thank you to last week's guest, Tanya Hampton, for being on the show. We were very honored to have her on the show and share her love and passion for, of course, Lewis Hamilton and collecting F1 racing cards, amongst other things, and for sharing with us on how she's gotten to where she is today with the love of her parents and the kindness of strangers. If you haven't watched and or listened to last week's show, you should definitely check it out. It's one of those really feel-good stories. Tanya is one you really want to follow if you haven't been already. Amit.
So tonight's guest, or group of guests, we have one in the studio right now. One is, unfortunately has technical issues, but we'll bring him on after. This is a bucket list item for myself. For those of you who've been following our show, you know the theme of our show is about diversity, inclusivity, and we try to tell you those stories through our collections, right? So we use our collection as a vehicle to tell the story, and at the root of all of our collections in the game, it's a passion for the game. So in my case, I'm an avid hockey fan. I transitioned from playing days to coaching Tyke, novice, and Adam level hockey players for our local league here in the GTHL. Kent's done the same up in Sudbury. I'm originally from Newfoundland, so we're small town boys at heart. Kent and I were often the only minorities playing hockey in our respective towns, and I remember that vividly. I was to grow up wondering, were there anyone else like me until I saw Robin Bawa got his cup of coffee in the NHL with, I think, the Ducks, I believe, that he got up in the NHL with. And I remember I couldn't get enough of it. I was like looking for newspapers to find out who this kid was. Our next set of guests have started quite an interesting journey in that they created an ice hockey program directed at developing hockey talent in the South Asian community. You may wonder, but these guests have nothing to do with hockey cards and collecting yet. The opposite is true. They're helping grow the footprint of South Asian kids in hockey. And you may never know. You might end up collecting cards of their kids one day. Or even better, they may even have other South Asian kids collecting hockey cards of their favorite South Asian player. So enough talking. Let's bring up our guests. Hey, Lali.
Hey, Lali.
Hey, me. Hey, Kent.
How you doing?
Pretty good. It's getting chilly out here in Edmonton, so I think it's hitting like minus 13. So I think the winter boots are about to come out. But hey, when it starts snowing and when it starts dipping down to that level, the outdoor rinks start opening up. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, now you're talking.
Well, you and Kent have more. Well, actually, no. Being a newfie, it was pretty cold, so we got to play hockey a lot earlier than most. So I want to first say hello to Dennis, who's come to watch our show. Dennis,
hello, Dennis.
Follower. He's always here watching our show. We have Name, who's Indigenous hockey cards. Lali, you may not know, I've heard of him, but he collects Indigenous rookie cards of hockey players. So he's got a fairly big following himself. We have Eric Sanderson Toor, our fellow Eric from Boston. Oh, look, Tanya's here. Tanya is coming to check us out. Hey, Tanya. Tanya was our guest last week talking about Formula One cars and getting nerdy with us on Formula One and racing stuff I'll never know. And Chris Wu, who's Asian hockey card collector.
Hello, Chris.
He's here as well, and he was also one of our guests. Oh, we might have Dampy.
Is it coming on? There we go.
There we go.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
We didn't even coordinate our hoodies, but
we didn't. I just wore this just because it's chilly, right? We never coordinate anything, actually.
Yeah. This is that's half the battle.
Yeah.
You look good without trying. That's the thing here.
We try, I guess. Give me a second here. All right.
No worries. So, for those of us who aren't familiar with APNA Hockey, which one of you can take this question? But tell us a bit about what is APNA Hockey, what is the story of APNA Hockey, and what did it take to get it off the ground?
Well, APNA Hockey is something that so I grew up here in Edmonton, Alberta, playing hockey. My parents are immigrants from India. My dad came in the early 80s. And something was happening in Edmonton in the early 80s. It's something called Wayne Gretzky, Yari Curry, the Edmonton Oilers winning Stanley Cups. So he kind of fell in love with the game through that and just saw how crazy the town got, right? And when I was born in 1992, 4 years later, put me in ice hockey of all things, right? Which is very odd for an immigrant family to do, especially, working a couple jobs. It definitely wasn't easy, right? And the second I got onto the ice, actually, I started thriving on the outdoor ice, right? Was a really good skater, started playing with some of the best talent in Edmonton from the 1992 age group. And I felt that, throughout my career, even at a very young age, like I started realizing, I definitely don't look the same. I'm being treated very differently. And as I progressed and started playing AAA here in Edmonton minor hockey, it wasn't an easy experience for me. It was very lonely. It was isolating. It was just me and my dad kind of navigating through it, right? And that's what made it so difficult. I never, I've played with players that are currently playing in the NHL, currently playing pro hockey. And I feel like I'm not saying I would have made it to that level, but I think I would have, played at a certain level, or even maybe got a scholarship out of it. But just never had a mentor, right? A mentor like my co-founder Damps, who is one of the first pro South Asian hockey players, that played after Robin Bala broke the kind of the South Asian color barrier in the NHL.
Yeah.
So I stopped playing at the age of 19, was trying out for a local college team here. After that, focused on academics, did my science degree from the U of A. And then at the age of 25, I was about to get into the MBA program, Master's of Business Administration program at the U of A. I always had this idea of, how can I give back? I had such a bad taste in my mouth from, playing and kind of being the only, ethnic minority playing at those levels. How could I give back so kids didn't have to go through the same experiences I did, right? And that's kind of where APNA Hockey was born. APNA in Punjabi means our hockey. And it was just an idea, and it was in my head for a few years until, got into the MBA program. And in April 2017 is when we kind of just, did our first event. Started up an Instagram page, very similar to like collecting hockey cards. I guess this is like the new way of collecting hockey cards, just posting on social media. I just started posting about, players that are playing at a prominent level and players that are, just showcasing them. And that's where it kind of, I think it grabbed Dampy's attention. And then he ended up giving me a call, answered it right away. And then we kind of met in Red Deer and talked over, this first camp is coming up. We wanted to market it. And I mean, I knew of Dan from a little bit before. Like I obviously heard his name and knew that he did play at a very high level. I thought it was just a match kind of made in heaven, right? I mean, Dams is 16 years older than me, and that's someone I desperately needed growing up. Someone that could, be that mentor. And from there, it's just kind of taken a life on its own. It's definitely been quite the ride. I mean, after so many different collaborations, NHL award, it's just been quite the experience.
It's actually an enjoyable one because once our friend Chris introduced me to you guys on Instagram, I started following you more. And at first I was like, what are these guys all about? But then I realized you're everywhere. I was like, oh, wow. And then, we'll get into this later, but Dampy, you did work with Haley Wickenheiser, who's also one of my idols, and so on and so forth. But I don't want to get into that yet. Let's go into the order of the stories. So we've broken it down by player. First, we'll start off with Lali. So, Lali, I want to ask you, one thing being South Asian, parents and family is everything, right? And part of one of the things I thought of when you said you felt a bit alone, like, we need a family, especially in our culture. Our family means everything. And without that, it's kind of harder to foster kind of that togetherness. So before we get into that, just tell us a bit about your parents and their story in Canada.
Yeah. So my dad's the youngest out of 3 older sisters, so 4 total. He left India at the age of 18, 19 to come over here and join his eldest sister. And he came here, went to school for a bit, kind of dropped out, and then just started working. He was here for about 10 years before he married my mom in 1990. And then I was born a couple or even, I think, right away. And like my dad, he's gone through, obviously he felt, very going through, being an immigrant, working hard. He started out as, carpenter, and I think every kind of trade in the toolbox, and kind of worked his way up to a certain point where he could have his own business. He went through, taxi cabs to, finally a liquor store, and he worked hard, throughout when he got here. And I think that's just a testament to kind of immigrant families, right? They come here with nothing, and they're able to provide, their family with so much, right? And so many different opportunities. And like for me personally, I can't even imagine just leaving Canada today and just, going to a different country and starting from scratch, right? So a lot of respect obviously goes towards our parents and kind of, their grassroots, how they had to, leave India. And I know India at that time was it's a tough time to live in India at the time, right? And obviously there's, turmoil in, lots of developing countries, but just again, a testament to, that immigrant mentality of, moving to a different country, working hard, and then providing your family with everything.
For sure. I'm sure Kent will talk about his dad in the segment, but my dad did the same thing, came here with literally nothing in his pocket, sitting on the steps of City Hall, eating his sandwich and a quart of milk, wondering where life was going to take him. It's funny because in our family, it's like you're supposed to do better than your parents. I can't beat my dad. He came here with nothing. If I went anywhere with nothing, I wouldn't be able to do what he did. So definitely hats off to our parents. So did your parent, Lali, have a favorite? Well, this is a silly question because you grew up in Edmonton, but I'll ask anyways. Did your parents have a favorite player or team growing up?
So my dad's favorite team was the Edmonton Oilers and still is. And his favorite hockey player was Wayne Gretzky. And I would have to say, I would have to say Wayne Gretzky is probably the reason why I started playing. It's just because of the hype and, the 1980s, early 80s, all the 80s in Edmonton, right? It opened doors for a lot of different ethnic minorities to just learn about the game, right? And fortunate enough, I was able to play it.
Lali, I got to ask you this question. So your dad's favorite player was Gretzky. How did he take it when he got shipped out to LA?
From what I hear, he was pretty devastated. I think all of Edmonton was pretty devastated. I mean, Gretz was he's an icon here, right? And he always tells me stories of, when he got married, like, I don't know if this is a rumor or if it's a myth, but like Gretzky paid for a bunch of bars downtown and his open bar for people in Edmonton to have drinks on his wedding day. Like, obviously Gretz loved the city, still does, right? And it's definitely, those are like, he's the GOAT, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he is the GOAT of hockey. And that permanent, fingerprint, he basically put Edmonton on the map, I'd have to say.
For sure.
Right. And so, yeah, like, I mean, Dad was probably devastated, but hey, hockey's a business, right? So that's always how it goes.
I was devastated. So for the record, I'm a Leafs fan, but I was also a Gretzky fan. And I remember my mom, this memory still taunts me to this day. I remember walking down. I just come from the corner store buying a pack of hockey cards or something. And my mom's out on the front step, and she's yelling at me. It's like, "You'll never guess what happened." I'm like, "What happened?" She's like, "Wayne Gretzky got traded." And I started crying right there. I just bawled. I was young though, man.
Yeah. Really, and you know what? Another person that might have cried is actually Damps, because Damps' favorite hockey player is also Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
Damps, will you cry?
I think for me was my parents were very devastated. My mom is not a typical East Indian mom. She loves hockey. She's right now rooting for the Oilers playing Minnesota at 7 and the game started. And she called earlier just to get the call out of the way so she can watch McDavid. So when my mom found out, we didn't think that was possible, that a player could get traded that, back then. Now, you see LeBron James going from Cleveland to Miami to LA, and who knows where he might end up. But yeah, when you're young, and I think we're all the same age except for Lali, we're just doing a guesstimation there. But I think it hit you really hard, because here you are replicating. I was Wayne Gretzky in so many street hockey games, in the basement, in the backyard. I wore a Oilers jersey tucked in. The way I played, I was a very playmaker, offensive player. So when I was younger, I scored a lot of goals. So a lot of people kind of would state me as the Brown Gretzky, or I would score a bunch of goals in a game. So I took that to heart, and never thought a player of that magnitude would be traded. And it took a long time for me to understand that, like, why he got traded. And even till the point where you're in your 20s, you're like, now you realize, once I started playing in the States, how it's a business. It's about contracts and what's happening behind the scenes with the owners, and how teams are making money and all that. But when you look back at it, Gretzky being traded really helped out hockey, because the city that he went to, non-hockey traditional environment, and how many hockey players are now coming out of the California stayed, if you will, or even the U.S. I think that was a big step. And now you look at it and you really appreciate that Gretzky went in there single-handedly, if you will, did something that a lot of athletes couldn't do, and especially a Canadian athlete born in a small town. So, did I cry? I probably did, and I'm like, now what? Right now, who's my favorite team? But the Oilers ended up winning the Stanley Cup again. You're like, okay, you realize how the depth of that team was, and how Mark Messier took over, and Yeri Curry and Anderson and the other players. And that's where my dad came in, and he's like, Gretzky was a great player. He had great players need great players with him. And the reason why they won the Stanley Cup, he was telling me, was because Gretzky's influence. Yep. And then other people had to step up. So there's a lot of things you learn from a trade. When you're a kid, you don't understand it, but as you move along and you have the right people to kind of walk you through that, it's a better situation.
That is so true.
That is true. It's a good way to summarize that. I'm glad that your mom's not your traditional mom and she's totally into it. Like, I'll be honest with you, the Leafs game is on and I have it in the corner. So just if I look over to the side, I'm checking out the score.
Hey, me, can I interrupt you for 1 second? How about we tag team our questions so that neither of our guests are sitting for too long. So I'm going to take a question on Dampy here. So can you share with us your upbringing, and was it slightly bit different as you grew up in BC?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in BC, just on the Alberta-BC border, a mining town of 3,500 people.
Mining town as well. Cool.
Yeah, it was a coal mining open pit, so it wasn't underground or anything. And my dad went to DePaul in the Manitoba area. He was in Saskatchewan, and it was other mills, nickel mines or lumber mills, right? So it wasn't, he didn't do the taxis or the convenience stores, the typical Indian, I guess, first profession, if you will. He really went into the mines, and he ended up in Port Alberni at one point, and then he heard about Sparwood, and that's where he ended up. And we had about 65 Punjabi families there, and ethnic families wise, like collectively about 65 families. So it wasn't a place where there's just the Brar family and a few others. There was a bunch of us, and we ended up living in the townhomes. It was like a small little community right in the middle, right in front of a school. And it was, we call it the hood now because, after watching movies and stuff, but everybody, like, it was the Badisha family, it was the family, it was a Sandhu family, Brar family. And that's where kind of like I realized as a youngster, like, there's so many of me out there. And I remember the love of hockey started growing because they were playing street hockey, and it was not just the brown kids, it was a bunch of white kids too, but there was predominantly brown kids playing street hockey. And I was younger then. I was only 4 years old, and I was watching, and I just asked my dad, I think maybe he's seen it. He was an athlete back in India, and he bought me a plastic stick. He had a pink blade, yellow shaft, black butt end, plastic puck. And there was a milk crate downstairs, and we didn't have a developed basement. It was just a small little basement. And I would just replicate what those players were doing outside, and realize afterwards that some of them played ice hockey. And I was lucky to have like five East Indian guys that were 4 to 5 years older than me, and some a year to 2 years older than me that were playing ice hockey. And so then when I would be watching, or I ended up kind of playing a little bit, then the parents were like, hey, why don't you put Dampy in hockey? And my parents were like, no, we like Stampede Wrestling, which is like the WWE style wrestling. That was their favorite sport when we moved into Canada. So they loved that. And then, and I ended up, getting taught by one of my friends. He actually ended up passing away earlier this year. But he was, I think, 5 years older than me, and he took me out to public skating, and I don't know where he found the skates. I remember going down there, and I think it was in the springtime-ish, when the ice was about to be taken out, and I think I learned in he said about 5 to 10 minutes. He gave me a chair, then he pushed it away, and he goes, you just had balance, and you just knew what to do, and that started my journey into playing hockey in the fall. So
awesome.
Yeah. Nice. So since we're doing the tag team, this actually worked better, so I don't want either of you to feel bored or not enough questions, and we have lots of them. So you both have painted a picture of what it was like to be young. Of course, this is a show that predominantly focuses on collectibles. We're not going to be doing much of that today, but I want to ask you both a question. Did you both collect hockey cards as a young kid?
I did, and I wrecked them all. Oh yeah, and it wasn't putting in bike spokes. That was not my thing. My thing was like it was like my son does that too. Now he loves action figures, even though he's like grade 8. He likes thinking out like he has. I think we spent over, and this is a moderate number, about $3,000 worth of WWE stuff. And now I had a family member say, hey, he's getting older. He doesn't need it, but he creates these stories, and he creates the matches, and then he assembles his action figures and records them about what their favorite moves are or their finishing moves and all that kind of stuff. And one of my other buddies who's my age, a year younger, he goes, how does he know what to do? Like, and so when I was younger, I'd use a hockey card. So I'd grab 5 of the Oiler cards, and then 5 of the Flame cards, and 5 of the Quebec Nordique cards and Montreal Canadiens. And I just dated myself when I said the Quebec Nordiques, right? So
it's okay. I'm your age.
Yeah. So I'm born in 76. So yeah, and I have marble, and those tabletop playoff.
Yes. Yep.
So I'd take the nets off, and I would play hockey with them. And there's a Gretzky rookie card that I probably demolished. And my parents loved it. They thought it was cool. They would hear me go, Gretzky to pass to Curry, and then intercepted by Paul Reinhardt, right? Like, and I would love the play-by-play. And I kind of do play-by-play sometimes at time, like when I was younger, and I wrecked the cards. And, and then you hear about this whole industry where Gretzky, I guarantee you had a Gretzky rookie card. I guarantee you had a bunch of cards that would be worth a lot of money, but my parents were scared you played with them, and that made you more interested in hockey. But I could have been a millionaire right now, right? So yeah, everybody collects cards. I think I collected cards up to about grade 10, and then your focus level was just playing and stuff. And
Sure.
And I wasn't that much of a collector. I had a lot of friends that were collectors. I was more of a player. Like I wanted to do something interactive all the time. If I think I was airing out my son's gear, and then we have an undeveloped basement. It's got a huge area where 4 adults could play, and I started shooting the little ball around in the small nets. Just earlier, I was playing with my little nephew who's 7 and my son who's 13, and playing 2-on-1 downstairs. And that was my thing. It was to be interactive, and I couldn't sit still. And so if I was hockey would be going on in the background, and I'd be wrecking those cards. You guys probably would be like, "What are you doing? You should have grabbed the different cards and then play with." But that was my interest in the cards. So.
Oh no, I wrecked them too. I bought them back later because I never left. But Lali, what about you?
So just like I guess the years leading up to me playing hockey, like I remember I would collect everything, like cards. I would like take newspaper articles and like put them on my wall, and like I was a hockey fanatic. I think the reason why I kind of gravitated towards hockey wasn't even to play as like a forward. I wanted to be a goalie because of the artwork on the goalie mask really intrigued me. The style of the goalie. Cujo was one of my favorites, and he played here in Edmonton. And I still remember going to West Edmonton Mall, waiting in line for his autograph. Yeah. And like I just love that aspect of hockey. But obviously, it's very similar to that. So like when you grew older and start playing, high levels, you kind of stop collecting as much, and you focus more on kind of the sport of the actual sport. But I used to collect quite a few things. Like anytime I get my hands on even like later, even playing AAA, like Tim Hortons or the McDonald's hockey sticks. Yeah. Like I'd still like go and still grab them. I think there was an Ovechkin one. Ovechkin was my favorite player growing up. So anything goalie related would be pretty sweet. But yeah, as you grow older, I kind of stop collecting. But something that that kind of got me into hockey, right? And it wasn't me just saying like, hey, like I just want to play hockey. It was like, wow, these goalies are pretty cool, right? I mean, just their style. I think the style, that's something that kind of stuck with me too, right? As a hockey player, like style was a certain way, right? I had to the tongues on skate have to do a flop outside, right? Just like Ovechkin, right? So or even like tuck in your jersey like Gretzky, right? That's what my dad taught me.
My memory was like Wendell Clark was my hero. Like I grew up a Leaf fan, so Wendell Clark was the guy I wanted to be. And there was a way he used to sit on the bench. He would hunch forward and kind of be off to the side. I would do that. I was nowhere near as good as him, but he was the guy I wanted to be. My dad wanted me to be Gretzky. Well, look how that turned out. So I got a couple questions. Just want to make sure. So name was he moved from Edmonton 2 years ago, lived there for 18 years. Chris Wu says you have the best hair. I have to agree, Damps. Your hair looks impeccable. In every picture I've seen, it's never out of place, even now. So I don't know how you do it. I don't
The
have much
flow
lettuce.
is good.
The flow,
It's really good flow.
Or is it the lettuce? Anyway, we'll save that for another time. What college did you play at, Lali?
So I didn't even, I actually tried out for the McEwen Griffins. 2011 is when I tried out for them. And that was after, a lot of BS in hockey. Like, I mean, it was just basically my last little kick at the can. So the McEwen Griffins is who I tried out for. The coach offered, there was a spot available on the team for me, but the scholarship didn't make any sense. It was like $500 scholarship, and going through a science degree with 5 courses and like 3-4 labs, I was like, you know what? I think it's time to focus more on academics. So I kind of just stopped playing there, but like not competitively, but I still play with, all my friends.
Yeah.
All my friends are from hockey too, right? So whether it be, catching up over the summer or playing at the ODR or playing men's league, like I still keep up with it. But yeah, that was the last time I played competitively was with the Griffins.
Okay, so there's the answer to that. And then Eric says he loved that Gretzky got traded. The Oilers had just beat the Bruins in the finals. I thought it was end the dynasty and would win the following year. 2 years again, they beat us. Gretzky-less. Yes. For the record, Eric, I hate the Bruins. My dad's favorite team when he came to Canada was the Bruins because of the color. He hated red, so he wouldn't follow Montreal. But every time the Leafs would play the Bruins, he would, I didn't want to talk about it. It's just uncomfortable. Let me just get back to my questions here. So, Kent, I think you're up next.
Sure, and I'll pose the question to both of you, and I'll start with Dampy first. Do you have a favorite memory or memories related to your parents and how hockey influenced your as you grew up with hockey?
I think for me, it's not just one memory. It's I think it was just seeing how they went from just throwing me into hockey and to them, even now, watching my kids play hockey, that whole progression. Like tomorrow, my son's got a game nearby, 5 minutes away from my parents' house, and we have everything organized for after school. I have a private hockey session that I'm doing. I mean, you're dead to me, sir. But it was just like how my mom was emotional when my son played his first quadrant hockey game.
Oh, awesome.
U15. I think that's where I think I can lead to is that for them it was almost like they watched their son, they put their kid in hockey, watched their son excel, supported him. Kind of they had to because it's what parents do.
Right.
They got involved. I remember my dad, the mind shut down for a year, and I was playing junior B. I was only 16. I was assistant captain. And my dad asked the coach, and it was a father that was coaching the junior B team, and his son was on the team. He goes, "Paul, can I come on the road trip?" My dad came on. We only had 1 or 2 road trips a year, right? Because we're a small market team. We didn't have. And I remember we're playing in I can't remember now, somewhere in interior BC, and the fans were throwing stuff at us, and one of the pop cans must have hit me as I was walking off. And my dad was carrying the sticks, and he looked at him with just that. He goes, "Oh yeah," and he swore. And that's the first time I heard the F word. And just the way he was, he's like, he grabs me, pushes me into the tunnel area so I can go through. And I watched his eyes, and just to see him protect me. I went from being told I didn't play a good game, and just the way how my dad was and how protective he was over me, and now progressing to my kids, they come to their practices, they come to their my daughter plays in a development league where she plays a lot of 3-on-3, 4-on-4. They'll come to that. My dad will go, "Oh, okay, it's all the way down there. Yeah, we'll see," and then he'll be there game time. And like my mom, like she's got food ready, the food menu ready for tomorrow because my son has to be there an hour before the game. I have a private session, so we're working. And she called 3 times already. Like, what do I want to eat? And this is all related to hockey, and this is how she was before. So both my parents, I can't put one memory for the fact that they're very proud of obviously me playing hockey, but now the grandkids, you just see even a different they see him in a different light. They actually see a younger version of me when they see my son, how he gets dressed up for games and how he's out there and they're out there. So, you know, one memory wouldn't do justice, and it's just the appreciation that as parents and grandparents, how much love they have for the game and how much love they have for us playing the game. And when I say us, it's cool. It's my daughter, my son, and myself, right? And just to end off is like I play ball hockey still, play at the Div 1 level, and my parents are there at all my playoff games. They came to the national games, and they were there on, like, they're not parents that don't come on time. They come on time and they watch everything. And I'm driving home, and my dad's giving me insight of how the team could be better. And so, you can't have that support. And not a lot of East Indian families that do that. We're in the, I would say, less than 1% to have my parents at the age of 45 come to a lot of my ball hockey games. Even regular season, they'd come out there. Yeah, they were retired, but they could do other things. But they make it a point, both parents, to come to my games.
Yeah, I can relate to, like, my parents used to come watch my games. I'm coaching my kids right now. I help them with the practices. I'm on the ice with them. I've never felt so alive as I've felt with being up with my kids on the ice, and my whole family supports them. I never quite had that because my dad loved hockey, but he couldn't play. Right, there's only so much he could do. Again, he wanted me to be Wayne Gretzky. I couldn't quite do what he did, but I think I scored 8 goals my entire hockey career. But that's a story for another day. Lali, tell us a little bit about your side with your parents.
Yeah, my dad was the reason why I started playing hockey. He had such a big passion for the game. Just memories of him that are, the guy that, woke up early in the morning, those practices, grab coffee, no matter what it was, he was always there. Pushing me into, at least, going to public skating was a big thing for us. And I think that's the reason why, skating was a big aspect of, who I became as a player, right? And I remember I think it'd be like at least 5, 6, 7 times. I did 7 days a week. Sometimes we go find free public skating around Edmonton. Because I mean, the only way to access ice, it was very expensive to book it, right? And after practice and minor hockey, we'd find that free ice sessions, through public skating. And I wouldn't have any equipment on, but I would just be skating laps, right? And just working on, my skating skills. And just him always just being there, right? And just regardless of, the ups and the downs, incidents that happen early on, AAA, like yelling at the coaches. He was one of those, I'd say he was not, I wouldn't say crazy hockey guy, because he knew something was up, right? He knew that his son was being mistreated. And again, it was more, I wish we kind of had someone who's been through it, right? I think that was like the key thing that was missing, right? Especially with my dad and I, someone there to just say like, hey, through the hard times, you gotta put your head down, you gotta grind through it, right? But it just got so bad. Like, I mean, I would go to practices and, he would be the only one standing on the corner. None of the parents would talk to him, right? And those are images I have, from as a kid, like as an 8, 9-year-old. So, I mean, when I think about, my dad and his influence, in my hockey career, and I would have to say if it wasn't for him, I would have probably quit right away. There was no reason for me to kind of continue on with hockey after the stuff that I felt, but he was always a big supporter. I will always remember, the first time we went to grab equipment, we didn't have a whole lot. So we went to a garage sale here in Castle Downs, Edmonton, North Side, found a helmet, found some skates that fit me, gloves, stick. And I will forever remember, him taking me to Castle Downs outdoor rink. And that's where I learned how to skate. Right. So those are the memories that, that'll always be with me.
That's awesome. I still have my Titan hockey stick from when I was a kid. Those sticks would not bend. They were built like steel. I try to use those composite sticks on the ice for the local hockey leagues, and I'm like, it's just too light. I got to go back to the sticks. What's interesting in the stories that you tell, Dampy and Lali, you show the experience of being a South Asian person growing up in Canada, trying to do the things you love in the sport, right? You want to do it, and you get prevented in some way, shape, or form. I can definitely relate to your story. I'm sure Kent, in a minute, I'll give you a chance to speak, but I was bullied quite a lot as a kid. So I'm hearing impaired, plus a South Asian kid in a small town. Wasn't easy. So I had many horror stories, which I hope no one ever has to go through. But I totally can relate. However, mine was more of a 24/7 thing, I feel. And I think you guys probably had the same thing. It's not just related on hockey, but I'm very thankful that the two of you are doing something like this. If I had a mentor, someone like you, I probably would have tried harder, done different things. But it's really weird to feel really small on the end of a bench and your coach doesn't put you on the ice. So that's a whole different ballgame. Kent, why don't you share us a little bit about your story? I've done a lot of talking about you.
Well, the funny thing is, my parents are immigrant parents, just like everybody else on the panel here. What's funny is my dad is a huge hockey fan. His favorite team is the Leafs, but my mom, and Dampy, you might relate to this. My mom is a huge WWE fan. She still watches. She's in her 80s now, but she still watches religiously WWE every Monday and Friday. And she can name all the wrestlers from back in the day, like Hulk Hogan, Dino Bravo, Randy Macho Man Savage. The list goes on. She loves WWE. She does like hockey. Don't get me wrong, but she really gravitates towards WWE. So yeah, no, you know what? The stories are similar. You grow up in a small town. It's mainly Caucasian. Hockey is like the Canadian thing to do. So in order to feel, strangely when I say this, to feel accepted or to be a part of the group, you kind of do what everybody else is doing. So you play the sport that everybody else is playing. But to Meet's point, to Lali and Dampy, despite you playing their same sport, you're still not on the equal scale of playing time or experience is what I'll say. So I can understand what that's like because growing up in a small town where it's mainly Caucasian people and you're just like the lone, I'll say, different person trying to mesh in with everybody else, it's difficult. It's difficult. So
We're definitely thankful that you have both of you to do this kind of work. And this is actually a really good segue into the most important part of this conversation, which is to talk about APNA Hockey. So the question for both of you, how did you guys decide to join forces with each other, and give us a little more of that backstory?
I can start.
Damn.
I was on Instagram because of real estate, and I wasn't big on social media. I had Facebook, but I was like, that's good enough, right? But my one of the lead hands in what's it called? Group wanted me to be on Instagram because it's free marketing, and now you realize where we've come to is a lot of Instagram stuff that we do, right? And I just seen a post after post of showcasing, and I don't know who that is. Is that me?
In the background, just give me 1 second.
Yeah. So
it's my cousins from Toronto. They're just causing a ruckus. I told them just go watch the Leafs game or something.
And then for me was just going back to that question is that so with me and Lali, how we got together, I seen over and over again the post and showcase and all that kind of stuff, and I was like on his Instagram page, and then I had seen his bio and it had his number on there and it said Edmonton, and I was like, I'm gonna text him on his phone and just to appreciate what he's doing. And I just my thing was to appreciate what he's doing, and I thought it was awesome. And then all of a sudden, after I texted him, after he probably read it, about probably less than a minute later, I get a phone call, and it says Lali Toor on my phone. I'm like, oh, like, okay, I'll talk to him. And then we ended up talking for probably close to an hour, and we shared stories. And he lives in Edmonton, I live in Calgary, and there's a Red Deer, which is halfway. I said, why don't we let's go on a date night. Let's meet in the middle and talk about things. And that's what we did. We met up. I think we were together for three and a half hours, and it was good. It was the synergies were there. The stories related. I had a different story, but the same. He had a different story, but the same. We talked about racial discrimination in the game, And, to win the award, like we never thought we can go. That was not in the plan of going and try to win an NHL award. We were there just to be there for APNA Hockey, like for South Asian athletes. And then, yeah, it just took off from there and how we got involved. And I went up to Edmonton to be part of the camps he did. And I seen so many people that look like me and him and part of this. And also, the Caucasian, there's a great Caucasian population that was at the camp too. So me grew up in a small town. I grew up with farmer boys. I grew up with Mormons, Italians, second generation Italians, and first generation Italians, if you will. But I grew up though. So I just seen that this is going to work out. And so we just obviously kept in contact and started working on step 1, step 2, step 3, and here we are, right? So it was I'm glad he called. I know he knew when he told me he knew of me, because in Edmonton, I played a lot of ball hockey in Edmonton and for Edmonton for their teams. So, and a lot of those guys played ice hockey. And so one of the big reasons why I kind of excelled in ball hockey was my ice hockey knowledge and just being able to play the game. And growing up a small town, I was very athletic. I played every different sport. I played tennis, I played basketball, soccer, every sport that you could name. And so he kind of probably heard that my name kicking around, that there's another guy that played hockey and stuff. And it was great. I was glad that he made the call. And like I said, when we met, you seen a lot of hurt in Lali's eyes, because I got to experience pro hockey and I got to talk to teams even in the NHL, but he didn't have the opportunity. And there was a lot of stuff that he went through that I was like, wow, I felt bad. I felt really, disappointed in the hockey system and disappointed in the treatment of a kid, because, when we talked as adults, but remember, he was going through that as a kid. And now I'm a 13-year-old kid that's born here. And if he were to go through even a small percentage of that, I think I would be, not I would think, I know I would be stepping up and making sure that doesn't go. But yeah, even to this day, you still hear stories about racial discrimination and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, yeah, we related to a lot of things, and I'm glad that age is like, we have a big age difference. He sees me with parents now, with kids, because I'm, like I said, I'm doing private sessions, I do group sessions, and I coach my kids as well. So obviously not this year for my son, but my daughter and all that. So there's a good mix between us, and he's got a good, he puts a great presentation together. Like the reasons why we can actually work together so well is that he can put together, he can do the research, he puts the information together, and he's passionate about it. And those presentations aren't just normal presentations. And that's why the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames decided to do the first shift program. It's great to win an NHL award. That gives you a little bit more credibility, but it's also the information. And you when you have Zoom calls, you can see in the eyes and the demeanor and in the voice where what we want to do. And but it all started with love and flame, and then everything just blew apart now, and we're very happy to be where we're at.
So you've only been at it for 4 years. So 2017, you said?
Yeah, 2017.
So through 2017, through COVID, and you guys have gone this far. Like, it's pretty amazing. So I spent the last week researching and looking up different things, and you guys were like, it's pretty amazing where I've seen your names pop up and APNA Hockey pop up. Did you ever imagine? Actually, let's go ask one question before we go into my other question. How does it feel not only to help each other but help the people around you? How rewarding is it to give back to the community?
Yeah, no, it's you know what, it's really rewarding. Like sometimes I get caught up. I personally do get caught up in it, because like you're so focused on just doing more and more, giving back even more, right? So it is sometimes tough to look back and actually reflect on what we've done, but but I mean, right from the start, I think it's just that relentless passion that me and Dams have, right? We want to be able to get as much as possible, make sure kids don't have to have go through the discrepancies that we went through. And it's just been right from day one. It's been nonstop. Anytime we need to collaborate, anytime we need to reach out to certain organizations, or even just public speaking, on ice stuff, social media presence is a big thing in today's age, right? And making sure the community understands that it's not just male players that are playing at high levels. There's also female hockey players earning university scholarships. How do you inspire, the next wave of South Asian elite athletes, right? It's to, showcase these athletes that are currently playing. Because like when I played against like one South Asian kid, Kevin Sunder, who got drafted to Buffalo. And this is when I was like 8 or 9. And the thing is, I was like, who is he? I never had a connection. I knew of Sire Gale, who we've got to know really well over the past couple of years. Yeah. But I didn't know who they were. There's nothing connecting us, right? So that's why, like, when we talk about APNA Hockey, like, we're not just, one thing, a hockey camp or anything. We're a multifaceted network, right? That's what, that's what I'm really proud of, right? And the fact that, growing up, I never had a voice, yet we built a platform now to speak up. That's probably the most proudful thing that I find with APNA Hockey is that anything happens in hockey, we have a voice, right? We're standing up against, stuff that shouldn't be in the game. That's probably the most proudful thing about APNA Hockey. But back to your question about, you've done so much. I think when it's your passion, it doesn't even feel like work. It's never work. It's something that's just happens, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's how I kind of go with it. Like, I mean, this trip to Toronto with Anthony Stewart, we collaborate with Hockey Quality. Like, going there is not work. It's like, I want to be there, right? I want to see these kids come together, have these kids, experience something me and Damps had never, ever experienced, which is, have 12 of the best South Asian athletes, together in Toronto for a one-day summit. Like, that, how crazy is that, right? So when you're looking back, maybe when I'm a little older, I'll look back like, wow, yeah, we did do a lot of stuff. But when you're in the moment, you just want to give as much as possible.
What about you, Dampy?
Yeah, like I just did I'm part of a Kids Play Foundation here in Calgary. We did a toy drive on Sunday. We have another one coming up on Saturday. And I walked in. I had to. One of the members of the Kids Play Foundation, he said, "Hey, there's an 8-year-old kid that needs a right-handed stick and a set of skates that are size 5-ish." And so there's a gentleman that lives not too far from me, and he both of his kids play high-level hockey, and he's got extra gear. And first thing he thought of, he goes, "Dampy, this gear is in the garage. Anybody needs this gear, it's free. Take it. I'm not putting it on Kijiji, and it's high-level stuff, right?" And I was going there, and I told one of the members, I go, I might be a little bit late getting there, but I gotta grab the stick and the skates, and I getting that, and that family appreciated it a lot. And when I walked in, and I remember this was on Sunday, and I seen one of the volunteers, and he goes, "Hey, I have a cousin that wants to meet you." And I guess he's been following our page and what we do and everything from Instagram to Facebooks, and he's a younger generation, so more on Instagram, and he just couldn't wait to meet me. And I sat there, talked to him 5-10 minutes, and he goes, "Well, I wish you were kicking around when I was playing hockey here, and I knew about you because I wanted to play, and maybe you could have convinced my parents to play." But just the way he was more talking about how I could have influenced him and so forth. And then you have all these volunteers that are like, "Oh, you're the guy, you're the guy from APNA Hockey," and now we got kind of like a status too. So, and it was great. But I think when you're at the rink with kids that you work with that are South Asians, you just see them at a different level of focus level because they've heard our stories, they've heard everything, and obviously it feels awesome to give back. My son's name is Seva, is selfless help, and my daughter's name is Sachi, is to be truthful, so we follow that. But for me, it's like, before APNA Hockey started, I was renting out the ice myself and doing free sessions for the kids because I thought that's a good thing, the good way of giving back. And it didn't matter how much money I put forward. And people are like, "Well, what you're doing should be worth value, money, and all that kind of stuff." And that just became part of APNA Hockey, about development, if you will, or assistance as well. So I have a lot of families that I've gone to their house to help them with the hockey equipment, went into the secondhand stores to help them properly get sized up and all that kind of stuff. So the feedback you get is great. Like, it's always like 98% positive, even 99% positive. It's been great from families. And like I said, I'm probably more involved with the kids side of things, like more involved of talking to parents. I have to make now this reminds me I have to call a parent tomorrow that's been trying to contact me, but it feels good. It does feel good. But the best part about it is that I've done different lead ups to podcasts while I'm on Bluetooth in the car with my kids and setting up the questions, this is what we're going to ask you and this is that, and really rubs off on the kids as well. And that's big. You raise your kids how you want them to be raised, but when, let's say, a parent is doing it, then it's, they see it firsthand and first source. So it's a great feeling. And even the chief of police, he was out there because the toy drive that we did was in memory of Sergeant Andrew Hurnett that passed away at New Year's Eve last year. And we did it for him. And they asked me when my schedule was free, and the chief of police was there. And I introduced myself. I'm like, hey, I'm Dad. I didn't realize he was chief of police because I just walked into this big group of people. And when he recognized my name, he was like, man, I've been following you. And, just the way he talked to me, and it was just the chief of police is saying that. And it just goes to about what we both have done and how we influence people. And it's just not me. It's a support of family members, close friends, other hockey players, even like the secondhand store, like they'll give discounts because if I refer them over there, they're like, we love what you do and we love what you guys are all about, and they want to help out. So the support we get from is not just the South Asian community, it's all around. So it feels really good when parents from different backgrounds, even the Caucasian parents, right? And that's where I wanted to make a point on that, is that Caucasian parents see that and they really appreciate that whole, the direction that we're headed.
Go ahead, Kent.
Well, no, that's a great explanation, and for sharing that with us. That's awesome. So I have to ask you both. You have partnerships with the Canadian NHL teams. Can you kind of tell us what it is and how that works?
Yeah. So after Damps took on the Willie O'Ree, I think I started thinking about, okay, what's next, right, for us, and what's the best way for us to make an impact, right? And we both sat together and we started talking about different ideas. And I think like a strategy for us was to kind of team up with the local NHL team, right? Obviously, we went to the Oilers first, and then the Flames, and then we started talking to the people at the respective organizations about, let's create these access points, for ethnic minorities. It doesn't have to be just South Asians, because I know the Oilers one's filled up with a lot of minorities, right? And like I know the Calgary one sold out as well. But like, let's create these access points, right? And have instructors that, represent them too, right? So guys like me and Damps are going to be on the ice for these first shift programs. Basically, a first shift program is sponsored by Bauer, Hockey Canada, NHLPA, and I believe the NHL as well, and the local NHL team. And Bauer provides a whole set of gear for $220, and you get 6 sessions with that. So it's low cost, low barrier to entry. See if the kids like it, first time skaters between the age of 5 to 11. I think this is a great way to create an access point. So, more minorities get into the game of hockey. Because when I kind of look at the overall picture of the NHL, I always look at, different, like revenue, like why isn't McDavid making as much as Steph Curry? Right? There's a problem, right? I mean, the game of hockey has now grown. That's the reason why, McDavid's not making as much as Steph Curry, right? Yep. So I think the best way to describe kind of our work, and I say this in a lot of presentations, is everything that we do is to grow the game of hockey, right? It's to ensure the longevity and the health of the game we love, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the best way to put it, because I mean, regardless of, we talk about racism, we talk about all the negativity around hockey, but at the end of the day, we just want to see more diversity in it. More diversity means it's growing. If it's growing, it's going to stay, right? It's not going to disappear, right? And, initiatives like the Bauer Shift have, it's clearly worked here in Edmonton. We sold out with the Flames. When we were in Toronto, we met up with the Toronto Brass out there. So hopefully a APNA Hockey Toronto Maple Leafs first shift is coming out to the GTA. And the best part is we've grown this network and we know so many athletes, right? I've said this so many times. We have so many male athletes that we are going to get them together, right? We're going to get some money behind this, and we're going to get all these kids together. They could represent India at the Olympics, and the talent is there for it. So I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's one of our big projects, right? Like, I mean, get these kids together, let them start skating once a year, maybe even do like an exhibition game. But these athletes are all across Canada, in the US. So when we do our first shift programs, we want these athletes to come and volunteer and show these kids that, hey, the type of instructors that are on the ice also look like the players on the ice, right? So our goal is to set that up with all the major teams across Canada. Maple Leafs are next. We're going to be talking to the Canucks pretty soon here. Create these access points. And then the next strategy was, teaming up with Anthony to kind of overlook the elite youth athletes, because they need attention too. Because those are the ones that, that used to be me too, that AAA player that had no one. So that program with Anthony is about, getting the top elite talent in our community, making sure they have the proper training, the proper on-ice development, and the proper mentorship from those pro junior guys that are playing at the highest level. So it's kind of creating a cycle of success, right? You hit grassroots, you hit the elite youth, and then you basically have the pro junior guys. And we want to have, the girls come out too, because there's a handful of girls in our community that are playing NCAA Division I, youth sports, which is basically Canadian University hockey. And there's a lot of girls that play in our community too. So when they come out to these camps, for that we're collaborating with Anthony, or whether we do them, specifically for females, we have the network and the connections to basically all bring it together and have that proper mentorship. So, I mean, that's more on the on-ice stuff, right? And that's kind of the strategy behind it, is to ensure that the first, because I always just bring it back. How would it be if I was going to an Edmonton Oilers APNA Hockey camp as a kid? After going to that camp, don't you think I would tell my teammates and be friends with my teammates? And my teammates would be like, wow, you went to an Oilers camp? And then that's something my dad could have also talked to the parents about. And then there's that, it's like an integration tool for ethnic minorities to get into the game of hockey, right? So I think that's kind of our goal with the whole larger scale of things.
Well, I definitely hope you guys achieve, and you will achieve it. I don't think I hope. I already know. I can see the future, and it's quite bright. You brought up a lot of important things. So, unfortunately, hockey is an expensive sport. That's one of the things that prevents us from seeing a lot of growth. And it's not just a South Asian community. It's a holistic problem that's trying to be solved in Canada, or anyways, right? So there is that. There's also, you're bringing awareness. Hockey is a sport we can play, so we see more South Asian kids play. And while you were talking, I was just thinking back to my league that I'm a part of, and you see, there's a few South Asian families, and I actually feel like I try harder. I'm like, hey, your stick's cut wrong. You should do this, and I'm trying to give them the encouragement to keep going, because I want to see more kids play.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I wish you guys were around when I was younger. It sucks that I'm older, and I still play hockey, and I'm still trying to improve myself. But I'm glad that you're doing this for the newer generation, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Actually, I'm going to share a couple comments if I can.
Sure, go for it.
So, Name says Castle Downs. I used to live in Eau Claire.
Yeah, I know where Eau Claire is.
And then Tanya says, thank you, gentlemen, for being great leaders in your community.
Thank you, Tanya.
Name is back. He says, really awesome to meet you guys through this platform. Amazing work. And then Tanya says, yes, girls rock. And then there's a question from Name. Have you guys heard of Smudge the Blades?
I have not heard of Smudge the Blades. No.
Name,
you're going to have to elaborate on that one for us.
Yes, I thought it might have been an Edmonton thing, but clearly we need a little more information, buddy.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go to the questions here, because I know I don't want to go over an hour out of respect for you guys. You guys are quite busy, and I don't want to you guys fall asleep on us while we're going live here. I'm going to pick out a couple other questions here that I thought was interesting. So
go for it.
So you talked about kind of the umbrella of what you're working on. You talked a little bit about the stuff you're doing with Anthony Stewart and the Hockey Quality Camp, which is, I took a look at their website. Wow, there's a lot of high-profile people on that site, but we'll save that for another conversation. But you're also doing partnerships with Alpha Esports. So tell us a little bit about
that. So Alpha Tech is actually a hockey parent out in Vancouver actually introduced us to them. we thought it would be a unique way for, you know, the non-traditional athlete to kind of get into the game, right? More of the gamers, I think esports is a big thing, and, you know, it's becoming a massive thing in our world now. And so we hosted a couple tournaments on the Alpha Tech esports platform. I know they're doing some stuff, I think, with larger companies. They've done stuff with Whitecaps, I think some NHL teams. And they're like, you know, let's do something for, you know, with APNA Hockey in our community, right? Because it doesn't have to, like, at the end of the day, like, you don't necessarily have to even play the game of hockey to really respect it and fall in love with it, right? And esports is a great way for, you know, kids to interact, you know, go, you know, play in tournaments that, you know, have hockey prizes. I know there was like some cash prizes and, like, you know, NHL 22 Xbox or PS5 games. And then, like, the goal is, like, we hope these kids look at our platform with our, you know, brand and say, hey, let's go try out the actual thing, right? I mean, that is the end goal. We want them to, you know, play hockey, enjoy the sport at the end of the day, and have fun with it, right? Whether it be competitively or for fun. We hope, you know, they can reach out to us, right? Anytime they need, you know, hockey equipment or whatever. Last year, I know around this time, Bauer donated 800 pieces of equipment to us, and we sent them to Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. I think some pieces out to Montreal and Winnipeg too, again, to grow the game. I think that's probably the best way to summarize what we do is we're trying to grow the game, right? Because I think this game needs to grow. It's exciting. There's a lot of potential in this, right? And I think we just gotta, you know, we gotta get rid of the old boys club and, you know, get the fun rolling.
But I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. I mean, I wish I had more time. Ken and I both wish we had more time to ask more questions. We'll probably have you guys back again. Oh no, we will have you guys back again.
For sure.
But I want to just, you know, mention a couple of things. One is you get to see, for the general public, you're trying to raise awareness in different ways, not just on the ice, but off the ice, with the NHL, with gaming. You're trying really hard to do this, and I can see, like, it's you can see the passion in both your eyes. The one thing I want to bring out, so Willie O'Rea is a hero of mine. So it's Herb Carnegie and a fair other players like that. So Dampy, this is old news, but not for everyone in our audience. But you were nominated and won the Willie O'Rea Community Award, which I was amazingly, I couldn't believe when I read it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Tell us about, how does it feel to be recognized for that, and how do you feel about it overall?
Well, I think, like, going back to it, you know, you don't, you know, when we started this, there was no thought process of winning award or being recognized. We thought we can just go on our way. And remember, Lali sent me a link and he said, maybe in about 3 or 4 years, you know, we might be fit for this award, but let's do it anyway. So I sent it to my wife and about 4 or 5 other people that know exactly what we do. So you have 300 words to put forward a nomination, and we did it. And I remember I was downstairs and my kids, my wife were upstairs. Because they used my wife's nomination, she was getting the emails, and they came running down. They're like, "You're in the semifinals list," and I'm like, "For what?" Like, you know, I was just doing what I do best, is just lie there, and I was watching something on TV, and they're like, for the Willie O'Rea, and I'm like, oh, and right away I reached for my phone and called Lali. I go, semifinals. I had no details besides that, right? So, and then you know, I kept Lali updated because, you know, it's an individual award, but I've always been that type of person that it takes a team to win things, right? We all know that, and it's a cliche that you'll hear from every athlete, but even what we do. And then and he was asking me questions. I'm like, hey, I just barely heard the news, and I'm just letting him know. And then he goes, oh, this is good. And how many semifinals are there? I'm like, I have no clue, right? And it happened to be about 10. And then we got another email around in April stating that we're in top 5. And then I was like, whoa, this is getting more real. And then in June, I was up in Edmonton. I did meet up with Lali there too, and I was there for a family situation. And my wife knew that I was picked top 3. It was 3 weeks, and my daughter knew as well because she was on the call. And I have to give it to my wife because she had to come up with videos and all what we've done, you know, like APNA Hockey, not just what I've done. And I think what really helped out in some aspects was the girls' ice hockey team came down to Canada and I was there in BC. Lali couldn't make it then, but Lali was there in Calgary. He stayed with me, and we were behind the bench helping out the girls. They got to see, you know, a little bit of who we were. And then it just ironically that year, my wife was doing a Punjabi movie shooting in India. And then we had a bunch of weddings because the wedding season is during the wintertime in India. And I took the kids there in January and made a point to go to Ladakh, the Himalayas, for 4 days, for 4 nights, and got to see their hockey programming and got to see the girls again. And with all that, fast forwarding to the top three, I think they've seen what we've done. They've seen that we just don't, it's not just an Instagram page. We're doing camps. Lali's setting up camps in Edmonton. I'm coming up there when I could, and then vice versa in Alberta, in Calgary rather. And when I ended up getting the award, the first person I ended up calling obviously was Lali, right? And I was like, hey, and because the news, the presentation was in the morning, right? Which we had to keep quiet, and Harnaran Singh was on there, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's on there. And it took about 20-25 minutes because they had to tell Willie Reed, this is how much you have time. You guys have to come up with 1 minute of what you need to say. Then the winner gets to speak for about a minute. And so I was like a little bit nervous. And then, winning the award was great. And, like I said, when I talked to Lali, I know Lali got emotional and because there was a lot of stuff that we had to deal with in our hockey careers as youngsters to get to this point, right? And so all those feelings of what we now giving back, so what we endured in our journeys, what we had experienced, to giving back to the community and standing up for them and being an advocate for diversity in hockey and inclusion and all that. And obviously it feels great to win the award. And then we didn't want to just have that award on the mantle. We wanted to keep going. And obviously winning the award gave us credibility, and more people, more organizations were reaching out and want us to be part of their programming or advice or be part of it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was great. Even like I go to the hockey rinks, and I was just going to play ball hockey on Sunday night, and there was a co-ed ball hockey league before me, and 3 guys came up to me like, "Hey, that's awesome. We voted for you." I'm like, "Well, it was nice to see the support that we've gotten just throughout this whole process." And I played a lot of ball hockey, and Lali knows that, and I'm on Team Canada's Masters over 40 team, and I had guys that I'm going to play hockey with, and because of COVID, it got delayed. But guys, there's a gentleman up in New Brunswick area, a small town nearby, and he has a hardwood store. We had everybody voting, and just to see the support, I had to call him and to thank him and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we got a lot of positives, backing of our communities, and not just our South Asian community, across the minority level. And it feels great to have something that we had to go through a lot as youngsters, and now we can give back and be a voice for them. So and it's a win for our communities, and it's not just a win for APNA Hockey or myself. It's a win for our communities, and we're going to continue to keep going strong. So
it's also a win for grassroots hockey in Canada as well.
Sure. Hey, Amit, I'm going to put Dampy on the spotlight once more. Dampy, can you share with us your partnering with Haley Wickenheiser and what happened there?
Yeah, I think I coached a kid here in Novice, and they're best friends with Haley, and they asked if we wanted to come out. They asked me to come out to the fundraiser, and I was like, wait a minute, we'll both come out. And I talked to Lali. I go, my partner and I will both come out. So we made a trip to Vancouver, and we talked to different people. I talked to Haley, and I talked to Haley before that. I was dropping off McDonald's coupons because Lali knows Niru Chappelle, who's owns a bunch of McDonald's, who helps with our hockey camps, and she was a big fundraiser for the girls hockey team, and so she knew Lali from before too, I believe, and so we just connected there, and they said, hey, the girls are going to most likely come down in the fall. Would you be willing to help? And that was in the end of April, and I think it was mid-June. I was in an ice hockey tournament, and I get a call and they're like, "Hey, the girls are going to come down. Are you guys willing to help?" I'm like, "I'll tell Lali right now. We'll help." And I got a chance to go to BC, and then when we came to Calgary, they were part of the Haley Wickenheiser's Wick Fest, and she was very appreciative that I made the trip there to Edmonton and then, to Vancouver, and then Lali came down and like. She was very happy. She's running the tournament. She's everywhere, and it was just a great to see her inspiration, her motivation of bringing these girls down. She was in India in January of that year and got to see everything. So she was a big spark plug of this whole thing, and to be able to work with her, do what we got to do was great. And she was very supportive of us being part of it and all that. And yeah, no, it was big thanks to her and big thanks to a lot of people behind the scenes that made that work. So
That's awesome.
It's interesting. The hockey community is actually really small if you think about it, right?
Mhm.
Like it's 6 degrees of separation. It's crazy because and that just shows how integrated hockey is in our culture here in Canada. So it's like baseball for the Americans and soccer overseas, although that's changing a little bit everywhere. There's a couple of questions. So in name said the Smudge the Blades. He said that is indigenous. Sorry, they're an indigenous organization with similar mandate as what you're doing with APNA Hockey. They do a lot of great work across the country with indigenous youth playing hockey, based out of Fort Saskatchewan. So that's what Smudge the Blades are. They sell apparel. They also do charity work, helping kids with equipment, registration costs, and scholarships for post-secondary education. That's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think Ted Nolan has the Three Nolans initiative with his two sons that play in the NHL out in Ontario. They do a wonderful job. Anthony collaborated with them, but anytime you see kind of ethnic minority groups come together and do programming and funding for their respective communities, always a positive, right?
For sure.
And Name is also raising awareness in his own way with his collection of NHL rookie cards featuring Indigenous players. So he's fairly well known there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, remember Willie made the Bruins lineup while being blind in his right eye. Amazing man, an amazing hockey Hall of Famer for sure. And only sharing it might be a good community connection. So actually, this is a good segue. So we noticed you do stuff with hockey equality and with Haley Wickenheiser. So you're not just South Asian. You're talking about as a community. You're kind of branching out. So what other partnerships besides that we probably don't know of that you do work with, for example, any other Indigenous community members or other organizations that, would people be interested in knowing?
So we do a lot of, I know like me and Dan, we're always on like different conferences talking about different, different problems in hockey. And like, we have yet to work with an Indigenous group, like APNA Hockey and an Indigenous group. We have yet to do that. But I definitely foresee it happening in the future, right? I think the way that APNA Hockey is trending, and like whether it be even like a blueprint that if Indigenous groups want to be able to connect with the local NHL team or create maybe a first shift that's all Indigenous, which I know the Oilers are doing. Those are different avenues that we could always just work together and execute on. But we've been at so many different conferences, and I meet so many different Indigenous leaders in the hockey world all the time, and so much respect to them and what they had to go through with the public schools, and just like kind of the sad stories of Canada's history with the schools, and just the how hockey kind of it was something that they just turned to, right? Because it was so bad what they went through, and I just have so much respect for the Indigenous, the Black community too. I was at a conference at Queen's University that was hosted by Dr. Courtney Soto, and I was talking from a South Asian perspective about our community and what we have to go through. And then there was Black hockey players and former Black hockey players that talked about racism that they felt, and then the Indigenous players came and talked about the public schools and all the trauma that they went through, right? So yeah, I think these communities, and this is something that Anthony is doing, is bringing these communities together, under the hockey quality umbrella, and just sharing these stories, right? Having Ted Nolan there, having APNA Hockey there, having his own program, was it Stewart Hockey from the GTA that brings Black athletes together, right? And it's about bringing these ethnic minorities communities together and making sure that everybody knows that, hey, the games that the way that the hockey world is in the social world, how it's negatively affecting, certain people, that this type of behavior is not tolerable. And, there's so much opportunity in these ethnic minority communities, right, to grow the game. So at the end of the day, like, I know for a fact APNA Hockey will be collaborating soon with Indigenous, Black, other ethnic minority communities. And it's just how we all, at the end of the day, we're trying to change the game of hockey. We're trying to grow the game of hockey. We're trying to ensure that it is, again, a healthy and it has longevity, right? Because at the end of the day, like, hockey needs to grow, right?
Yep.
Or, sports like the MLS are going to surpass us, and I don't want that, right? And the game needs to grow. So, no, in the future, we definitely see ourselves, working with different groups.
Yeah, now that we have the information, like we'll look it up and we'll reach out, and we thank the person that put forward the information to tell us about this, because and that's how we got with Anthony Stewart. There was a person that Anthony Stewart was talking to. He goes, "Is there a South Asian program out there that we can reach out to?" And it was a quick snap of his fingers, and he called and he messaged us on Instagram, and fast forward, we're in Toronto doing the summit. Like it was a turnaround, and we're more than happy to work with other communities, because we can't be everywhere, and we're very open to working with others and working with other groups. I just played ice hockey in Banff in like a beer league tournament, and the team that won the whole championship was an Indigenous team, and it was really good to see how good these guys were. And I got to play in a tournament when I was 19. I was playing college hockey up in Edmonton, and I went to a reserve to play, and we're playing for the host team, and it was just a great atmosphere. It was just got to see how much the talent level, and they got to also, at the age of 19, understand the barriers and challenges that they were facing too.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up in Sparwood, there was a lot of reserves nearby, and we'd hear about some of the players that could have came out of there, but during certain situations they couldn't, and some of the things they faced. And I think Sportsnet had a segment on a gentleman that was a goalie that didn't get to fulfill his dreams of playing where he wanted to play because of his background. So, and when you hear those stories, like I said, Indigenous or East Indian or South Asian or any minority, it really hits you because we went through it, right? And we want to be able to reach out to those communities and say, hey, how do we work together, and how do we kind of build together? And like Lali says it best, is like, to grow the game, you have to work together. And sometimes in our community, we've seen a lot of separation. Like, when somebody wants to do something, there's a lot of people that want to shed, hate on there or on anything. But we go the opposite way. We want to include everybody. We want to work things out with people in a way to move in a positive direction, because it's for our youth, it's for our kids, and if we're there for them, then it's a better situation.
We want to work with like-minded people, right, at the end of the day.
For sure.
I think whoever shares our passion, we can tell right away. And that's why I think Anthony Stewart was a really good fit, because we share very similar passions, think the same, and we understand that, getting these kids together it's about the kids, right? And getting these kids together and making sure that they're well supported to, eventually, hopefully make it to that next level. That's
awesome. I know we're at the hour mark, over the hour mark. So I want to thank you both for actually staying a little bit extra. I know it's a bit of a long day for us as well. I wanted to before we ask them one question, I want to ask people, can you inform people how people can get a hold of you? How can they help you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find us on social media under Facebook. It's called APNA Hockey School. APNA spelled APNA. Our Twitter is actually, our Twitter handle is also connected to our Instagram handle. Instagram is where we do most of our work. It's at APNA Hockey, APNA Hockey. That's probably the best way to contact us. We are working on a new website that's going to be revamped. Basically, all our new initiatives, highlights Willie O'Ree, that's going to be coming out pretty soon. But the best way to follow us is probably Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome.
We're
going to ask you, so Kent's going to ask you our favorite questions. We ask all of our guests at all of our shows. And then after that, we'll end it. And then if you two can just hang out in the back in the studio, we'll end the broadcast, just close up, and then you'll be good to go. Cool?
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Can't
So
tell.
it's our favorite question that we ask all of our guests when we reach the end of a show. And I'll start with Dampy first. What inspires you?
Just a smile on kids' faces when they enter the rink and they're on the ice, and when they leave. You've done something right uh, for them, and the parents thanking you and wholeheartedly, and parents reaching out to you on text for working with your kids. And one thing that Lali and I really focus on as well is that life skills is such an important piece to hockey, sports in general. When you play a team sport like hockey, you can't do it everything by yourself. You will have your great players, you get your amazing athletes, but I think what inspires me personally is just seeing these kids play a game has so many intangibles that are needed in real life. The self confidence, the self esteem that sports brings forward, and if you're part of that, it's a great situation. I can name every single one of my coaches. I think from the time I started to the time I ended my sports career and my hockey career, if you will. And I really thank them for a lot of the advice that they gave and assistance. And if I'm talking like that, and kids are coming to our programs, and if I'm working with kids one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-three, and they feel the same way, that means you're influencing them in a positive way, and that inspires you to keep these kids in a positive direction, because they can always go in the wrong direction. So that's one of the things that inspires me. And the next one is like, my kids are playing hockey now, and I see the influences that different coaches have on them, and different people in the game that have on them, and how they talk about them. And if people are talking like that about myself and Lali when we're with the kids, then it's a positive situation. And so parents are been parents can make or break a person's career or the love of the game. And if I try to after sessions talk to parents and make I won't even take off the skates, and I want to be able to talk to them and the positives of their kids. So we want these our youth going into the next generation, different chapters of their life, to have that self-confidence. And when I was younger, I wasn't as confident. And well, people see me now, they're like, you must be like so popular, you must be like this. And I was a direct opposite, if you will, right? I was popular because of my hockey play, but when it came to as a person, I really didn't like how I was. I was very skinny and scrawny, and would get bugged all the time, be pushed around all the time. So if you can influence kids in a positive way, and be able to really work on their mindset, and that's the inspiration that takes me to continue to do what I do. So
That's awesome. Lali, over to you.
I think the kid version of me inspires me. I hope he's proud of me and what we do today, because I know for a fact he would have loved this. And the kid version of me inspires me a lot. It sucked what he went through, but I really hope he would be proud of what me and Dance and APNA Hockey and what we've all accomplished. And again, it's just everything that Dance just said is exactly what this is turning into, right? Something that kid will be proud of.
Awesome.
And I could say this, that he would be, because I know we've had like thousands of minutes on the phones, if not more, and to see what Lali's passion is to influence, and to different ideas that he brings forward. And he looks into the eyes of the kid that he'd be talking to be the junior Lali Toor right next to him. And that is probably one of the best statements that I probably heard in a long time, is that and I would say that he would be proud, because I know I'm right beside you all the time, and I can say that he would be.
Well said. Well said.
Well said. So we're going to call it a night there. If you guys just want to hang out for a quick second, we're going to end the show, and then we'll talk to you after. I want to thank for all the people that came to watch, and those on Instagram as well. Next week we'll have Tim from Slabstrong on. We're going
just
back.
A programming note. Next week it's Wednesday, not Tuesday.
True. We'll be on Wednesday. So I want you all who watch this video live and are going to watch it after, please follow these two fine gentlemen. Please help support their cause, and more importantly, keep up the positive vibes and spreading goodness in our community, that we can all do this together. So I'm going to end it right there. Have a good night, folks.
Good night, folks.